Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. It has actually been a little while since I've recorded this. A lot of the episodes you've been seeing going online prior to this were recorded earlier in July. This episode is going to start off something a little bit different. Since my last recording, there has been a rather big update called the Career Mode Update. It introduced the idea of an economy. On the top of the screen, on the top center, there are a couple of new scales there. You'll see a number that says 10,000. That's our current budget, and that's the default budget. And you'll see our science is now represented on the right of that top center bar, which is 134.7. The bar in the exact middle, I believe, is reputation, but we'll cover these things one at a time. So, economy. This means that we can no longer launch vessels on their own as we desire to. We have to mind our budget, which means that things are going to get a little bit more tricky. You might be wondering how we actually gain funds, then, if we do get stuck on a budget. Well, the way this works is a new place that we can go to called Mission Control. Yes, at Mission Control we have a list of missions that we can undertake. You'll notice that some of these are missions that we've already done, such as plant a flag on Minbus, plant a flag on the moon, science data around Minbus, and any one of these that we feel comfortable with taking, or maybe some that we feel adventurous about, we can select. For example, plant a flag on the moon. If I were to choose this, then we would need to go to the moon and plant a flag on there. We've only done that once before, but consider the science we could gain from doing that. I will consider the contract. There's some missions we can actually do immediately. Look at this, for example. Science data from around Minbus. We already have 2 satellites orbiting Minbus, so this is something we can do immediately. Let me select this actually real quick. On the top of the screen, we actually got a little bit of a budget for doing this, because the game assumes that we're going to launch a new vessel to get there. So it actually gave us another 10,000 or so in the economy. Let's see. This is the active mission we have going right now, then. We have 11 years to accomplish this, by the way, according to this screen. We have the Prestige, which means trivial. Since we've already done this, it's nothing too big. We accepted this at year 2. It gave us the date that we started this at. They give us a little bit of money, but we'll get a ton more money if we actually succeed. At the bottom, you'll see that we got money in advance. We will get about 72,000 in for completing it, as well as 401 star, which I believe in this case is reputation, so we get a higher amount of reputation. But if we fail the mission or don't accomplish this in the next 11 years, then we will lose nearly 13,000 in terms of the budget. Fortunately, we chose an extremely easy mission that we don't have to spend any of that actual advance on. Not all missions are going to be this easy, by the way, but if we go to the Minmus map set that we already have established out here, and if I tell it to do any one of our current missions, I think the one that we can have it do is the log gravity data. I'm going to move this alarm clock screen out of the way. Actually, I'm going to close that screen. We don't need that to be open. Now, we don't have that much battery power on this thing, but it gets us where we need to go. And up on the top right here, you'll notice that there is a flashing symbol, and what used to be a number 0 turned to number 1. That signifies that we just completed a mission, and our budget has gone up to 94,000. So already we got a lot of funding for basically having to do no work at all. Except the only thing that mission cost us was battery power on this craft. And since we have solar panels, that battery power will be renewed rather easily. In fact, if we speed up time, that should give us the science. There we go. In fact, gravity, if you're doing any missions like this that require a gravity scan or anything like this, like an orbiter, for example, the best science device to bring with you is a gravity scanner, because those work really no matter where you are. Oh, there's our original Aldrin lander way down there on the pole still. But yeah, that's that. Of course, some of the missions, as you might be able to predict, are a bit harder to do. Let's take a look at what our options are right now. Let's see. For example, You'll notice that there's some missions that are listed that that list conditions, like plant a flag on the moon is one, which is an obvious, straightforward idea. But you'll notice there are other missions that include flight over landed on Kerbin, and so on. And obviously, depending on what those conditions are, the more challenging they're going to be. Then the easiest ones to tackle out of the conditional ones are the ones that specify landed at Kerbin. So let's see, that's a radial decoupler. That's very simple to do. So let's grab that. Let's see, in flight over Kerbin, appliance data, orbiting Kerbin. So we need to orbit Kerbin for this one right here. That's a different type. I'll do one of each type and see if we can get any solid science or money out of this. An atomic rocket motor is something we haven't tried yet, actually. By the way, if you haven't unlocked this in the technology tree, don't worry. It actually temporarily grants you the ability to use this item. And let's see. And a parachute. So right away we've got something that's landed, something that's in orbit, something that's coming back down. We have a general suite of items that we're going to do, and I'm not going to do all of these right now. This is just to show you the general idea of what we can do. And you'll notice every time we pick them, our budget has gone up ever so much more. We're already at 462,000 funding. If you're starting the game with this new update having been done, it's going to be a much more slow climb up to where I am right now. But because I already have a preloaded career mode file, we're continuing with the game assuming that we should have this much funding available to us. Let's see, turbo jet engine in flight over. Oh, you know what? There's one more mission I'm going to select here. It's something that's for the long term, but considering that it's a place that we're already planning to go to anyway, Eve, I already mentioned a few videos ago, I'm planning to send a mission to Eve shortly, so this will help us get there, so I'm just going to select this now. Every little bit counts. And since we don't have to do that one for another 22 years, there's absolutely no harm in doing it now. Right. So, if you want to check your missions, you can go up here to the top right corner where it says Contracts, and these are all the missions that we've selected. You can scroll up and down with them using the scroll wheel on your mouse. So let's design a basic rocket that can handle all those parameters. I'm going to make this as simple as possible, just to make it a little bit easier to understand. So we've got our command pod. We're going to put Jebediah in there because, whatever. Let's consider what else. I'm going to call this the economy mission. There we go. So, let's go back to our contracts, which have now moved to the lower screen. First thing that we need is a Mark 25 parachute, which the game has given us. If it's a technology we haven't earned yet, it's going to appear in blue on your screen. So all we have to do is put this on our machine, and when we're at the right conditions, we can test it. Now, the conditional experiments, let's see here, the Mark 25 parachute. We have to press the spacebar to activate it, and we can't just do that ordinarily. We have to do it while we're in the air between 8,300 meters and 12,900 meters. It's very conditional, and our speed has to be very specific too. Now, granted, we can pretty much do this whenever we do a landing, and we're going to do this on the landing of this current mission. We need to test. I'll get back to the landed on part later. Science data we can't do with this mission yet, or I prefer not to do it with this particular mission. I want to save the Eve mission for a big journey, which we'll be tackling shortly. Let's see, we need the atomic rocket orbiting Kerbin. Okay, so I'm going to create a lower stage part right here, which should be a simple fuel tank here. We're going to use this brand new device called an atomic rocket motor. Now, the atomic rockets are actually really, really nice devices. We haven't earned them yet in our technology tree. They are extraordinarily efficient. They burn I believe with a low amount of thrust, but also only use a very little bit of fuel, which will be really handy for orbiters or missions to other planets. So we want to have these, which we are going to earn later on with our newfound science. So the idea behind this stage is that we'll test this once we're in orbit, specifically at about according to my value here, about 100,000 kilometers or so, typical orbit. I am also going to add a decoupler here on this lower stage, and a decoupler underneath it too. Now there's one more parameter that we need to test here, and that's the Kerodyne rather, advanced orbiting machine. So we need this part to orbit too. Now this is a much chuftier thruster, as you can plainly see, so we're gonna need a lot of firepower to get this whole system up in the air. Let's see, I'm gonna give it a really small... Ideally, I don't want to put this mission under too much strain, because I really don't think it needs to be that big of a mission to do any of this stuff. So we're gonna be a little bit more conservative with our launch vehicle here. I'm gonna give ourselves a stack decoupler, which will make this whole thing decouple. We also want our launch vessel, which does not have to be anything too fancy. I believe we've used these earlier when we try to launch our Galileo mission. And we'll use a mainsail. What else can we do for this vessel? Oh, there is one more condition that we have here too, actually. That is going to be testing something on the ground, the radial T338 decouplers, which are these guys. We've already used them plenty of times before. In fact, I'm pretty sure we can even use them now. I'm using different ones right now, as you might be able to tell, just because I want to give this vessel a little bit more firepower on the way up, because we're gonna need it to put ourselves into the orbit that we want. There we go. I'm not being too fancy with this mission, because I don't think it requires too many specific things, to be perfectly honest. Let's see, I'm gonna put some struts on this for stability. Right on there on top of that NASA logo, which I'm probably going to change because we now have our own, our own new alien logo. Let's make sure that did not happen. I am going to hit Control Z to reverse what we just did, or undo. I'm going to add some fuel ducts on this vessel, and then we should be good to go. There we go. Anything else I want to add to this? Oh, right, the decouplers, of course. We are going to add... let's put them right here on the ends. That's not going to matter. We're going to decouple these as soon as we launch. Frankly, I can just put something really lightweight on it, like steel girders, whatever. Last but not least, I think there's one more thing we can do here, too. I'm gonna put some RCS fuel on this. Put some RCS fuel on that. With some thrusters. About 3 should be sufficient. Oh, actually, you know what? There is one more condition to launching that might be useful to have. Recovering pieces. You'll notice that, or rather, I'm getting ahead of myself. On the bottom left screen, where my symmetry mode nodes are, the economy label is stuck right down there. And the more pieces I've been adding, the more that value's been increasing. The higher that value, the more it's going to cost to launch this rocket. And there are ways to save money by doing a minimalistic approach like what I'm doing now. We can also save money by recovering some of the lower stages that we leave behind. For example, if I put one right here, then that'll ensure the stage with the fuel canister and our atomic rocket motor will return. I'm not really going to bother putting... Well, no, I'm not going to eat my words that fast. I'm going to put these here. In fact, I think the lower stage here will need 3. The more pieces you recover, honestly, I think the more money you'll get back in return. So we're almost ready to launch. Now I just want to put my staging in the proper order here. First thing I want to do is get rid of these right here. That looks good. going to make sure all of our engines fire at once because we've added fuel ducts, and that'll be the most efficient way to do it. As we get up higher, we want to decouple the upper stage. Decouple this stack decoupler once we achieve orbit. We'll want to use this to test one of our rockets and the upper portion right here, which should fire at the same time. Upon that mission being finished, well, actually, hold on. Maybe just to make it a little bit more cleanly organized, we'll do them one step at a time. Now then, once we put ourselves back into a landing position, or get ready to land, we'll lower this stage right here and release these parachutes, which should put this portion down on a safe landing trajectory. And the second decoupler up here will lower this piece. Finally, when we achieve the landing that we want to, we'll do our final test of the mission, then we'll be able to call it good. In case we get stuck in orbit for a while, I'm just going to add some solar panels onto this baby. 3 of them for maximum efficiency, because we're not worried about putting landers on this thing. And, okay, we should be good to go from here. I'm just going to save and launch. Right. And by the way, I should mention this now before I launch. For those of you playing the game, you might be receiving different missions than what I have been getting here. And that's because the missions generate randomly according to what your current skills and technology abilities are in the game. So first things first, we're going to do our instantaneous you-win test by doing... Don't worry, I wanted those to be out of the way. Those were our radial decouplers that we wanted to test on the ground, so that was the easy one that we got finished. I'm going to close all the ones that we don't need to worry about doing so I can see the ones that we still need to finish. The rest of these are going to happen while they're in orbit, so the first thing I really want to do is put ourselves into that orbit in the first place. So we're hitting T to launch, throttling up all the way, and we should be good for liftoff. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Now, I should mention, one of the commenters actually, rather recently, mentioned that after you reach a certain amount of speed, it's probably a good idea to start to throttle down on your thrusters. Because that way, I believe his reasoning was that, since we're in an atmosphere, burning too fast is going to be an inefficient way to spend fuel, because we then have to burn against the atmosphere, and once we hit a terminal velocity, there really isn't a point. But once we reach a higher space where there is no air to compete with, then I believe we can thrust fully without severe consequence. Okay, 87,000 looks good to me. So actually, you know what? What I can do, I just realized, is if I put our orbits in 2 places, one at 87,000 and one at about 100,000, then that should fulfill both parameters of the mission. Like, we can do one at the lower periaps, and another part of the mission at the higher periaps, and that way we can kill 2 birds at 1 stone by using minimal amounts of fuel. Unfortunately, I have not put that many stabilizers or gyro controls on this thing. We do have some monopropellant, but that kind of isn't too impressive. Music is kicked in, so it assumes that we are in orbit, or rather in space, which is true. I'm going to quick save, actually, just in case anything happens. Now, with these bigger, more hefty, sort of cumbersome devices, if I kept going to the left, the ship would keep turning even after I let go of the button. One trick I noticed how to handle this, and I'm not really sure the game intends it to be this way, is if once you land on the node, you warp time forward a little bit, you stop turning, and for whatever reason, that seems to be the case. But fortunately for us, that's handy. That'll probably go away in future updates, though, so I'm not sure if that's something we can count on always. Oh, we're still turning, though, and that ain't good. Let's see. I won't worry about testing the engines now. It's more important to actually attain the orbit first. So let's keep an eye on our apoaps and periaps, and burn! Oh, okay, let's keep an eye on our apoaps and our periaps. We want our apoaps to be at about Well, actually, it's as long as our periaps doesn't dip below 9,000, it should be fine. In fact, even that's acceptable. Maybe a little bit extreme for what we were trying to do, but that's okay. So let's consider where we are now. The first thing that I can do is, well, the first thing I should do is get rid of this lower stage because we no longer need it. So let me quick save just in case I got my staging wrong, and we're going to ditch that lower stage. Now then, we have our missions to conduct. And the first one is requires this brand handy dandy brand new system rather, called the Advanced Engine. And once we hit the stage here where we go above 86,000, all I believe I have to do is actually start that stage, and then that'll conclude the test. So I'm going to actually go forward in time a little bit here. There, now the conditions should be just right. Stop going forward in time. I'm going to quick save in case anything goes wrong, and I'm going to... Did that work? Yes, it did. That mission is now considered a success. I'm not going to thrust too much because I don't want to go too far out of the orbit that we have because I like where we are. Oh my gosh, did you see that? I only burned for a little bit and that already put us like twice as high as we were a second ago. Is that actually what happened? Oh my gosh. That's amazing. This is an incredible engine. We need to use this for more missions in the future. In fact, I do want to recover this piece, so when we get back to landing, we're going to take care of that. Now, you might be wondering how we're actually going to test the atomic rocket, because that one actually requires us to be... Actually, let me just pause so I can continue my train of thought without having to worry of losing the time. Now, the atomic engine that we have in this highlighted piece right here is still in one of the upper stages, which is being blocked by the earlier test that we did. You might think in order to test the atomic rocket, we would have to jettison the old piece. Fortunately, that's not the case. But you want to make sure that you're throttled down to basically nothing when you test it. Otherwise, the lower piece will destroy the upper... the upper atomic rocket might destroy the lower piece and ruin our chances of returning the lower stage. So I'm going to quick save before anything happens. All I should have to do in theory is push the space bar. Or maybe I have to click the run test button right here. There we go. So if a piece of your staging isn't quite working the way you think it's supposed to... Ooh, I love how our debris is flying off like that. That's really cool. If a piece of our debris... no, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Now, we've done all the tests that we need to do, actually. And technically, we can put ourselves on a trajectory to get back to Kerbal now, if we wanted to, which we probably should, honestly, since we've done most of our testing. I'm going to close these up right here, since we don't need them cluttering our space. What my plan to do is that when we get back into the atmosphere, I'm going to wait until we're really, really low in the atmosphere, and then I'm going to jettison the pieces. In fact, what I might even do, just to make this a little bit easier on us, is to grab this upper parachute right here and lower it down all the way to the bottom here and use it as our first parachute that we deploy. I've learned, actually, a problem that occurs in landing back down with parachutes, and that's if a piece of debris goes further than 2.5 kilometers away from you, it stops rendering that piece, which is why some of my earlier launches back in episode 5 or 6 or what have you went missing. It's because there was no important command pod or anything on it, so it considered it irrelevant, and well, it was on a collision course anyway, so it just deleted the pieces. So I'm going to keep going until we reach this apoapse. Then I'm going to burn on the retrograde until we come back down here. And I'll try to use as little fuel as possible, because honestly, I don't think we need to worry about using that much fuel. The first thing I'm going to do is shut down this engine, and in fact, I'm going to take it a step further and put it in its own stage, just so that we don't accidentally damage our main thrust with our atomic engine. Because the more we recover, honestly, the better it is for our economy. Now then, we're at our Apo app, so I'm just going to quick save and burn so that we put that back on the ground. In fact, it looks like it's going to put us in the ocean between the desert and our own home base. So, I shouldn't have to burn any more fuel to get back home. And considering how much fuel we currently have, I believe the more fuel that you recover, the more money you make back in your return. So now all we have to do is get back down to the close to the ground, and when we reach about 12,500 kilometers, I'm going to deploy the parachute. According to this, I need to activate the staging when we accomplish there, so I have to press the spacebar when all the conditions on the mission are met. So the first thing I'm going to do is start getting us back home. Let's see, our economy is skyrocketing, by the way, and I believe our science is actually... You'll notice, actually, I just want to pause this for a second, that our science down here has also significantly gone up. If you do missions that test new pieces, your science is significantly boosted. We only had 100 earlier, but now we've gotten up to basically 300 additional science, which is awesome, because it suits our needs perfectly. And frankly, that's accomplished... Oh, okay, here we go. Let's see here. I realize that we might actually be able to slow down our descent manually using some of the fuel in our lower stage here. And that might be handy to have, because I'm not sure, because the other condition that we have going for our parachute deploy is that we have to be going at a certain speed. We haven't dealt with that part yet, and that can be kind of tricky. So if need be, I'm going to orient ourselves in a position that aims retrograde so that we can burn extra fuel if we need to. This system is pretty powerful though, so I'm pretty confident we won't have to. I'm going to try not to if we can help it. I'm going to quick save right now just in case anything happens to it. Although I've learned from our mission to Eve and from other earlier missions, do not quick save and then leave from a parachuting object. So once we're parachuting, I want to be set. Fortunately, so far so good. We are very rapidly slowing down. You'll notice on the bottom right there, but we shouldn't slow down to below 100 meters per second because we're still a heavy craft. Again, making sure that my staging is set so that this parachute will deploy once we reach that altitude. Our speed is very significantly slowed down. In fact, it looks like we're at the speed that we need to be just about. And almost... Here we go. There! Now we've deployed that parachute. That's not going to be enough to get us back on the ground, so now that we're close to the ground, I might want to start deploying all of our other parachutes too. In fact, I'm going to start deploying those on their own, like so. Oh, did that not work? There we go. Huh, maybe I don't have to decouple any of this stuff. I might do it anyway, just in case. In case this is a weird or awkward landing. I'll take a look at our landing speed when we get close to the ground. And if we are going a little bit fast, I'll start decoupling our pieces. But yeah, there you go. All of our science experiments have been done, except for the one where we need to do science around Eve, but that's again for later. Okay, we're not going slowly enough, so I'm going to start decoupling the pieces. There we go. Or maybe I decoupled too soon, actually. That might be beyond our render distance. I'm a little bit worried. Oh wait, no, I can see their shadows on the water. This should be fine. So, we should be within render distance of those pieces of debris we dropped, which means that we can recover them. And now all we have to do is perform our landing. So I'm not going to bother quick saving because I'm onto this game. Well, one thing I hadn't quite counted on is the possibility of actually landing on our pieces of debris, which we might have to deal with shortly. Oh, no, looks like we missed. Oh, but our lower stage, our lower thruster is missing. I think it exploded on impact with the water. Well, no matter. Let's start collecting our pieces. So the actual commander pod himself, us, we would turn with a little bit of money gathered because the command pod is kind of basic. Um, Here's all the money that we made back from that one piece. Jebediah gets 2.7 reputation, although a lot of the reputation we gained came from testing those pieces, but we gained 2.7 reputation for Jebediah, giving us a total of 801 from just one mission. If we go to our tracking station, we can go to our debris, and we have two pieces that landed at Kerbal. If we go to the bottom left and click recover, we can immediately recover those pieces. There we go. And we left a couple of pieces in orbit around Kerbal too, but there's not really too much we can do about that, except if we click the red button at the bottom, it'll be terminate. It's just a piece of debris, so there's no real harm in terminating the piece. It's just to avoid extra clutter, really. And I suppose if you wanted to, you could go through your debris page if you have any that you don't want floating around and kill it too. I'm not really going to worry myself too much about that. The only real danger that honestly causes is cluttering up the space and potentially being a hazard for passing spaceships. Now then, all of that together gave us a huge amount of science and a huge amount of economy. We used to only have 10,000. Now we have, I think that's 1,411 and 805 economy. So, now that we have done all that, there's a couple pieces that I want to buy that are going to be useful for our upcoming mission to Eve. Specifically, I'm going to want this one, called Large Control. These are large pieces designed for large vessels, like a new command pod that's huge, with the big windows on it. We also have a massive RCS tank that holds up to 750 monopropellant, and a new lander can, which we can use to put Kerbal in, which will increase our ability to send multiple people out at once. So we're going to research that. Now, we only have 207 science left, and while I really want these atomic rockets because it makes for very efficient systems, I can't quite afford that yet. So let's see if there's anything else we can afford right now. Actuators, supersonic flight. We could use... Honestly, we could probably use these precision engineering pieces. They're smaller monopropellant and larger... I mean, they're like monopropellant pieces, and they're also small thrusters. They don't give quite as much thrust, but they act like RCS, and they give us a lot more control. So I'll pick those. Although in my next missions that I aim for, I'm probably going to want to aim for nuclear propulsion. As far as I can tell, that's honestly, the next big step. And I might aim for very heavy rocketry too, because that gave us that extremely efficient engine that we saw over there earlier. Anyway, that's it for today's adventure. In the next videos, we are going to start making our way over to Eve with our new project, which we will see shortly. Until then, stay tuned and good night.